If you want to understand the depth of a civilization, do not look only at its brightest moments, look at it in the heart of chaos. In the 5th century BC, China was burning. States were devouring one another. Millions were dying in endless wars. The old order had collapsed, and it was precisely in this moment, rising from within this fire, that the second great wave of philosophy emerged. Today, we encounter the Yin-Yang cosmology that shaped everything from medicine to statecraft, the cold genius of the legalists who unified an empire, and the infinite silence of the Tao in this journey. We will do something special. Using advanced artificial intelligence techniques, we have transformed ancient civilizations, thinkers, scientists, and philosophers into vivid, lifelike scenes, so you will not merely listen to the history of thought. You will witness it as closely as it has ever been seen. The Yin-Yang school produced one of the most pervasive, most enduring, and most all-encompassing ideas in Chinese thought, and it came from perhaps the least known school. Its principal representative was Tzu Yan, a thinker believed to have lived between 305 and 240 BC. But Tzu Yan's own works did not survive. Most of what we know comes from other thinkers who wrote about him. The Yin-Yang teaching rests on a beautifully simple idea. Everything that exists in the universe arises from two opposing but complementary fundamental forces: yin, darkness, passive, feminine, receptive, cold, moist, young, light, active, masculine, transformative, warm, dry. But these two forces are not enemies. They live inside one another. The seed of one is always present within the other. At the darkest moment of night, the first light of morning has already begun to stir. At the peak of summer's heat, the road toward autumn has already opened to. This was added the theory of the 5 powers Wu-Xing: water, fire, wood, metal, and earth. These are not static elements. They are dynamic forces that produce and overcome one another in an endless cycle. Wood feeds fire. Fire produces earth. Earth yields metal. Metal carries water. Water nourishes wood. And the circle closes. This cosmology was not merely a theory of nature. It was applied to history, to politics, and to the human body. Each dynasty was believed to correspond to one of the 5 powers. The Qin dynasty represented water, and so it adopted black as its sacred color and revered winter as its season. History was a cyclical process, and those who understood its laws could see the future. Han Dynasty thinkers, such as Teng Zhengshu, merged this cosmological system with statecraft, establishing the idea that the emperor must exist in harmony with nature. If the emperor acts wrongly, heaven sends drought or flood as a warning. This idea, the cosmic harmony between humanity and nature, became one of the most defining philosophical axes of the last 8 centuries of Chinese civilization, and Yin-Yang thought lives on today. In Chinese medicine, in feng shui, in the martial arts, even in modern Chinese political philosophy, its traces are unmistakable. Now we come to the hardest, coldest, and perhaps the most honest voice in classical Chinese thought. The legalist school, Fa-chia. Every other school placed its trust in human virtue, love, or wisdom. The legalists rejected all of this. Human nature is fundamentally self-interested. People seek reward and avoid punishment. Therefore, the only realistic way to govern a state is to use these 2 levers: reward and punishment, laws and power. This school had 3 great predecessors, each focused on a different axis. Shen Dao concentrated on Shi, power and authority. Shen Pu He on Shu, the art of governance and the techniques of managing people. And Lord Shang on Fei, law, the one who synthesized these 3 streams and gave them philosophical depth, was Han Fei Tzu. Han Fei Tzu was born into the royal family of the state of Han. He is said to have been a stutterer, but the texts he wrote came from the most brilliant political mind of his era. A student of Sun Tzu, Han Fei Tzu transformed his teacher's thesis that human nature is evil into a complete political theory. Virtue is an empty word. Family bonds are unreliable. Do not trust your wife. Do not trust your children, because everyone at every moment is calculating what they can extract from you. So, what must the ruler do? First, establish a comprehensive and transparent legal system applying to everyone, including the aristocracy. Second, constantly monitor his officials and evaluate their performance. A duty is assigned, a standard set, and if the official meets it, he is rewarded. If he fails, he is punished. Third, the ruler must conceal himself. He must reveal his true intentions and desires to no one, because whoever appears powerful is always exposed to attack. Han Fei Tzu's ideal was a state that functioned like a mechanism. Personal virtue was unnecessary. A correctly constructed system could govern a country even in ordinary hands. This is one of the earliest theories of bureaucratic statecraft in human history. And how did it end? Han Fei Tzu's book reached the king of Qin. The king was astonished and said, "If I could meet the author of this book, I would be willing to die." He met him, but Han Fei Tzu's former classmate, Li Su, now the king's chief advisor, turned the king against him. Han Fei Tzu was imprisoned and forced to drink poison. He became a victim of his own theory. Closeness to power is the greatest danger of all, but his ideas lived on. The Qin dynasty applied Han Fei Tzu's teachings, and in 221 BC, unified all of China under one rule for the first time. Weights and measures were standardized. The writing system was unified. The Great Wall was built, and the books of every philosophical school except Legalism were burned. This was one of the greatest acts of intellectual massacre in history. But Qin lasted only 15 years after completing this unification. Legalism was found defective and retreated from the stage of history. And now we arrive at the most mysterious voice of all. Confucius spoke of law and virtue, Mo-Tzu of love, Han Fei Tzu of power. Lao-Tzu spoke of silence. Lao-Tzu, the old master, is a legendary or semi-legendary figure. According to Sima Qian's account, Confucius once visited him, and after their meeting told his disciples, "Birds fly, fish swim, animals run. These things I know, but Lao-Tzu is like a dragon. I cannot know how he rides the wind or rises to the heavens." That Confucius would speak of someone this way shows just how extraordinary a figure. Lao-Tzu was the Tao Te Ching attributed to Lao-Tzu, is a short but infinite text of 5,000 words, and its very first line draws its own limit. The Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. The name that can be named is not the eternal name. So what is the Tao? It is the source of all things, yet it has no name. It produces everything yet demands nothing. It cannot be seen, heard, or touched. It has no shape, yet enters every shape. It is empty, yet never runs dry. It existed before heaven and earth, before God, before existence itself. This definition seems paradoxical, and it is deliberately so, because the only way to understand the Tao is to stop trying to grasp it. Wisdom is not knowing. It is knowing the limits of knowing. Lao-Tzu's moral philosophy is born from this metaphysics. To live in accordance with the Tao is virtue. And how does the Tao behave? It does nothing, yet nothing is left undone. From this comes Wu-Wei, to act through non-action, to refrain from acting against the nature of things, to allow everything to live its own nature freely. The same principle applies in governance. The ideal ruler is one whose people are not even aware of his existence. The less he intervenes, the more the country lives in peace, the more laws there are, the more thieves there will be, the more rules there are, the more poor people there will be. For Lao-Tzu, Confucius's elaborate system of ritual and propriety is a sign that the Tao has already been lost, if humaneness must be spoken of. The Tao has already departed the thinker who took. Taoism's metaphysical dimension furthest was Chuang-Tzu, believed to have lived between 369 and 286 BC. This philosopher was born in the state of Ming. After a brief minor government post, he chose the life of a wandering hermit. When the king of Chu offered him the position of prime minister, he replied, "Go, do not contaminate me. I prefer the joy of my own free will." Chuang-Tzu's problem was fundamentally different from that of other philosophers. They were searching for political solutions within the chaos. Chuang-Tzu was asking something else. Is there meaning in this world at all? And his answer was his own. Meaning can only be found by uniting with the Tao, by passing beyond all categories. Chuang-Tzu developed a striking philosophy of reality and relativity. Every perspective is limited. The frog at the bottom of the well believes the sky is only as large as the mouth of the well. A damp environment makes a human being sick, but for the mud fish, that environment is the water of life. Which way of living is correct? Which understanding of beauty is universal? Mao Xiang is considered the most beautiful woman in the world, but fish flee to the bottom of the water when they see her. Birds take flight. Is beauty absolute? And then comes that famous dream. One night I dreamed I was a butterfly, fluttering happily through the air. When I woke, I was Chuang-Tzu again, but now I do not know. Was I Chuang-Tzu dreaming of being a butterfly? Or am I now a butterfly dreaming of being Chuang-Tzu? This question is not absurd. It is saying that the boundary between reality and appearance is far more uncertain than we believe. And accepting the uncertainty of that boundary is, for Chuang-Tzu, the first step on the path to wisdom. Chuang-Tzu was one of the sharpest critics of the Confucian school. When the Tao is lost, virtue appears. When virtue is lost, humaneness appears. When humaneness is lost, righteousness appears. When righteousness is lost, ritual appears. Confucianism, in other words, is itself a symptom of the very disease it tries to cure. Wisdom in Chuang-Tzu is lived as Wu-Wei. But this is not stillness. It is moving beyond claims and assertions. The sage becomes like a mirror, neither rejoicing nor grieving, reflecting everything but attached to nothing. Even at the death of his own wife, Chuang-Tzu was found singing not from heartlessness, but from an acceptance of death as part of nature's great cycle. Influence of Chuang-Tzu is deep despite being contested. Neo-Confucianism drew from him. The paradoxical language and philosophy of silence in Zen Buddhism owes a great debt to Chuang-Tzu, and today, that question between the butterfly and the man still stands unanswered. From the tortoise shells of the Shang to the school courtyards of Confucius, from the universal love of Mo Tzu to the silent wisdom of Lao-Tzu, from the cold law of Han Fei Tzu to the butterfly dream of Chuang-Tzu. Classical Chinese thought is not merely the intellectual heritage of one nation. It is one of the great philosophical keys of all humanity, and this is the greatest quality of that thought. It never froze. Confucianism is still taught in Chinese schools today. Taoism still breathes in its temples. Yin-Yang cosmology still lives in everything, from medicine to art, and that first question carved into the tortoise shell is still waiting for its answer. What is the order of this world? See you in the past.